Hi, everyone. Welcome. You're all joining us from comfortable locations, even if the time zones may not be comfortable across the globe. I think we're going to get started. Welcome. My name is Anna Timadottir. I am the CEO here at Creative Commons. My pronouns are she, her. And I would like to start by handing things over to Jocelyn. She's just going to walk us through a few housekeeping items for today.
Hi everyone, my name is Jocelyn Miura. I'm based in Brooklyn, New York. I'm the community manager here for CC. My pronouns are she, her. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. If you'd like to take a moment to introduce yourself in the chat, that would be great. And before we get started, just want to let you know that this event is being recorded and will be shared on CC's Zoom account. So you may have noticed this is a webinar. We actually had over 800 people register, which we're very excited about. So we decided to convert it to kind of better manage the audience. We welcome questions and comments in the chat and Q&A sections, but we won't have time to get to them all today. The good news is that this is the first of many public engagement opportunities on CC Signals. At the end of our time together, I'll be walking you through how to give formal and informal feedback and ask questions. This is a really exciting step, so I'm going to just ask some warm-up questions and get you reacting with emojis. So in the bottom bar, you might see a little react section with a little heart above it. You can navigate down to there. Who wants a more mutually beneficial AI ecosystem? Can I get some emojis? Yay. Wonderful. And who's excited to learn more about CC Signals? Awesome. All right, keep on using those. I'm going to pass it off to Anna, who's going to start us off with our program.
I love these emoji reactions. This gives some great energy to the session. Thank you so much. Feel free to keep using them. So we are here today because we are officially kicking off the public part of the CC Signals project. But we figured before we get into the specifics on what that project itself is all about, I really want to provide some background around how we got here and why this matters, because the why is so deeply important to then the how of what we build. So as many of you know, CC has been engaging with the community to better understand the effects of AI on the commons for probably about the last 3 years as part of a global consultation effort. And this included things like hosting sessions at the CC Global Summit in late 2023. Thank you to anyone here who made the trek out to Mexico City for that. Our team also attended conferences and convenings globally, hosting workshops and roundtables. Many of these were virtual, some were in person. And for instance, for sessions hosted at MozFest and Wikimania, we felt we deeply, deeply benefited from insights from our sister communities in attendance there. We've also been keeping track of and engaging in the development of AI policy and legislation throughout this time, because there are obviously shifting sands underway. And most recently, we've been trying to do a stretch of intense workshops and roundtables in cities around the US and Europe, so New York, Boston, San Francisco, and Berlin. But what we've seen over and over and over again in all of these conversations, workshop sessions, etc., is that AI is testing the resilience of our commons. And for so many years, there were unwritten rules or a set of shared expectations around what would happen when you shared content on the internet. But obviously, this has shifted and it's no longer business as usual. And we don't have to look far for the evidence on this. There is copyright litigation going on against AI developers, I think over 40 cases at the moment. There are efforts all around the world to reform copyright law to address AI development. Most recently, I think headlines made in the UK on this. But probably more jarring, I think, is that we are starting to see these cracks form between the benefits of sharing openly licensed work online and then the resulting consequences and effects of machine reuse. And these cracks are many and complex. So through the early days of the consultation, there was a really clear message from our community, which was just plain and simple. Folks feel uneasy that their content is being used to develop AI systems without any transparency, and they're seeking ways to reclaim more agency, which feels fair. There were three themes that came up over and over and over again, and I'm sure anyone who's been reading contemporary news on this subject has run into these: credit, consent, and compensation. And these themes or areas of concern made it really clear that an intervention is necessary. We need new tools that will help rebalance power and ultimately infuse the AI ecosystem with the reciprocity that it needs to be sustainable. So thinking back, this feels like another inflection point: the rise of the mainstream internet in the early 2000s. So back then, Creative Commons challenged these notions of all rights reserved versus no rights reserved, as if there was a binary, and offered this set of nuanced and practical tools for creators, ultimately introducing a middle path. So you could make it easy to share in ways that grow the commons and increase access to knowledge. And today, we estimate that the licenses have been applied to tens of billions of works on the internet. But the CC licenses alone are not going to be sufficient for this moment. We are facing another all or nothing binary, and this time, the collective efforts of building the commons and the progress that we've made over the last 25 years in the open movement is all on the line. So when we think about this, we think about sort of possible futures. If there's no intervention, neither of these possible futures aligns with the vision of Creative Commons, which is a future where education and culture and science are equitably shared as a means to benefit humanity. So the first possible future, and we could argue we're already living in it, is one where creators keep sharing online in an ecosystem without guardrails, and we risk a complete free-for-all in terms of reuse. There's a one-way street of giving without any benefit, a relationship that many people would call exploitative. And this is quite clearly not a sustainable future for the commons, nor is it a particularly desirable future for anybody who wants to share online. But the alternative future is an overuse of seemingly protective measures. So something as simple as more restrictive licensing terms. Maybe I used to share my items under CC BY, and now I'm going to reach for CC BY and C because that feels safer. But from there, you head in the direction of paywalls and closed access and licensing agreements that only favor large rights holders. And so that future is a world with an internet for sale. So it's a road that leads to enclosure and limited access to knowledge. But as is our way here at Creative Commons and in this movement, we are not going to accept this all or nothing binary because it's a false choice. We don't have to pick between this free for all or full enclosure. We see another way, thanks in large part to all of you, because following our consultations and our research and analysis, by late 2023, ideas around a potential intervention emerged that felt appropriate for CC to explore further. Preference signals for AI development. And so this is where we have been focusing concentrated efforts for the past 18 months with the support of our board of directors and experts throughout the global community. And at first glance, this idea feels simple, right? Those who are contributing data to AI, creators and collection stewards, they should have some kind of mechanism to ask for something in return. The way we are thinking about this as an organization and a movement is not, and I repeat, not as a one-to-one exchange, but in this wider sense of reciprocity for our open ecosystem as a whole, because again, we do not want an internet where everything is done in direct exchange for something else. So simple, yeah? But if we don't have legal certainty, and considering that the evolving policy landscape shifts on a daily basis with regards to AI and copyright, it's also extremely complex to create a mechanism for this. And at the same time as we're trying to shift the conversation towards this broader ecosystem powered by reciprocity, It is no surprise that we are getting questions about creator funds and micropayments. Why wouldn't we just reach for individual licensing? Why wouldn't we just add a monetization component to everything that is openly shared? We believe this would not address the need to protect and grow a thriving Creative Commons and would arguably fundamentally skew the ways in which we share and mess with our motivations for doing so. Can you imagine if every time you went to write something for Blue Sky or LinkedIn that you were going to get a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of some monetary component? I think it would change all of our behaviors for the worse. So, CC's unique value proposition within the era of AI is this: we want to sustain a Creative Commons by building a framework that supports a mutually beneficial relationship between those creating and stewarding knowledge on the one hand and AI developers on the other hand, trying to stem this understandable trend towards enclosure and drive systemic change by asking for something in return for the commons, which is not something we've been great at doing over the years. And this really matters because the long-term sustainability of the commons depends on an AI ecosystem that produces shared benefits. It's time for a new social contract between those who share content and those who reuse it in this era of AI. And if we're going to be successful at doing this, we really need buy-in from everyone involved because yes, it's technical, there will be specs and there will be code. Yes, this is legal, there will be lawyers. But more than anything, this is about new kinds of relationships and distribution of benefits because we all need the commons to thrive. And it cannot happen without the support of those who are creating and stewarding this human knowledge that is currently powering these massive machines. And it also cannot happen without a groundswell of support from our collective. So using our power to call for a better way. If we don't get this right, we risk universal access to knowledge and culture. And we see universal access to knowledge and culture as a human right and as absolutely vital to our ability to address our most pressing challenges going forward. So with that background, I'm going to hand things off to Sarah Pearson, who's Creative Commons' General Counsel, and she's going to walk us through the details of the CC Signals framework as it currently stands.
As Anna said, there will be lawyers. I'm one of them. I'm Sarah Hinchliffe Pearson. My pronouns are she, her. I'm the general counsel at Creative Commons. It is thrilling to see so many people here, and I'm so excited to tell you a little bit about CC Signals. So there are many unknowns still around this framework, and we're at a starting point. But I want to start by talking about a few things that we do know and why we believe this is the right intervention for Creative Commons at this time. So we know that AI depends on public web data. We also know that reuse of web content by machines is not new, and that much of it is socially beneficial and has been widely accepted. But we also know that this time it feels different. And we believe that that's because the pace and the scale of AI has outpaced the social contract that has governed machine reuse of web data for the last 2 decades. As Anna mentioned, the evidence of this breakdown is all around us, and the fallout is a trend toward enclosure. We're seeing more paywalls, we're seeing more use of restrictive licenses, we're seeing more calls to strengthen copyright. And over the long run, if those solutions don't work, we fear that people may not publicly share their works at all. This is bad for everyone. Now more than ever, we need to ensure that we don't put up unnecessary barriers to accessing knowledge. Humans need access to educational resources, scientific research, and other core knowledge goods that help us understand our world and make it better. And machines need access to help us advance too. We need to find a new equilibrium that's mutually beneficial for all. So the development of CC Signals is based on 2 core ideas. And in some ways, these are in tension with one another to a certain extent. So the first is that we believe there are many legitimate purposes for machine reuse of content that must be protected. The process of using machines to analyze large amounts of data to better understand our world is and has been an incredible opportunity for human progress. We think this is largely consistent with a fundamental aspect of copyright, which is that ideas and facts cannot be owned. At the same time, we believe that an ecosystem that better addresses the valid concerns of those creating and stewarding human knowledge is both possible and necessary. In other words, we don't think that the boundaries of copyright tell us everything that you need to know about how to navigate this moment. Our goal is simple, but it's ambitious. As human content increasingly becomes data for machines, we want to build a new social contract to govern that relationship. Copyright is part of that, but it's not the whole story. So before I get into the details of our current thinking, I want to start by naming the particular orientation that we're in at Creative Commons in this moment. The organization has now spent several years listening, learning, analyzing, and we're turning to a new phase. So rather than diagnosing problems, we're now trying to imagine a tangible vision of what might be possible. And of course, this is called prototyping. So I recently came across an essay by design researcher and artist Sarah Hendren about how prototyping deserves acknowledgement in its own right. She wrote, quote, "A thing being prototyped is trying to get born, unfolding right there in front of you. And all the conversations around that thing have the quality of willed belief. What if it was half as big, twice as long, a different shape around its edges? Dozens of questions that are all really just versions of the best and only question in design at the end of the day. Could it be otherwise? We hope that you will join us in imagining what might be possible." So here is our current plan. As Anna mentioned, the idea behind CC Signals is simple. A steward of a collection of content, such as a repository of research outputs, applies a signal to express a set of criteria about how the content can be used by machines. That party is called the declaring party. Following our core design principles that I mentioned earlier, the signals don't aim to limit or restrict machine reuse. Instead, they're aimed at incentivizing actions in return. As we've been calling it, they're a form of yes and. Yes, you can train, and here is the reciprocal action I ask for in return. We've drafted 4 signal elements for public feedback, and they're designed to reflect core elements of the overarching theme of reciprocity. They are credit, direct contribution, ecosystem contribution, and open. You can see the proposed text of each on this slide, and I'll talk a bit more about our thinking behind each one. So first, credit. There's currently no fully satisfactory method for achieving credit in the AI context, but we still think credit is a critical form of reciprocity. We're aiming to establish norms around what is possible and trying not to let the perfect be the enemy of the good. So like the attribution requirement in the CC licenses, we imagine this signal requiring credit in any reasonable manner. There are plenty of people doing important work in the field about what attribution and provenance can look like in this context. We plan to develop guidance and best practices around credit in future stages of this work, drawing on that work done by others. For now, at a minimum, we expect that this signal requires citation of the training data set by the reuser. And then for use cases where it's technically feasible to connect the data with particular outputs, those outputs must cite the collection as a source with a link. There are 2 contribution signals, direct contribution and ecosystem contribution, and neither are intended to spur a commercial transaction. Instead, they're designed to create a structure for financial or other types of contributions to support the sustainability of either the declaring party directly or the ecosystem in which the declaring party is situated. The idea is that the contributions are proportionate. So they're proportionate to the particular type and scale of machine reuse, and they're proportionate to the financial means of the party undertaking it. We are not trying to find ways that individual creators can be directly paid each time their works are used by machines. We're trying to spur the redistribution of monetary and non-monetary benefits across the commons in ways that sustain the commons. At a later stage, Creative Commons will develop guidance and best practices for valuation and contribution. Finally, the open signal element reflects the fact that making AI models openly available for others to use and build on is itself a form of reciprocity. It's inspired by the share-alike licenses, and it's different from the other signal elements because our proposal is more specific about what's required to adhere to it, referring to definitions of open models developed by others. So collectively, these signals are an opening attempt at capturing what reciprocity means when it comes to machine reuse of content. Reciprocity is something everyone seems to want, but there is certainly not consensus about what it looks like. This is entirely new terrain, and we are eager for feedback and ideas to improve. So there are a few key variables to understanding how CC signals are designed to work in practice. The first is who is applying the signal. So as I mentioned, a declaring party applies the signal to a collection of content. Sometimes the declaring party will hold copyright or have authority to represent rights holders in the content. In those cases, a CC signal may have legal effect, and that legal effect will depend on the particular jurisdiction. In cases where a collection of content includes works from multiple authors, which is often the case, it will be the responsibility of the declaring party to coordinate with its community to determine the appropriate signal. The next variable is the scope of machine reuses addressed by the signal. So the declaring party chooses the scope based on a set of standard categories being developed by the Internet Engineering Task Force. Those categories are not yet set, but they range from general categories like AI training to more specific categories such as generative AI training. The last variable is what signal is applied. So the declaring party has to select the CC signal to apply to their collection, and that communicates the declaring party's preferences regarding machine reuse. I want to highlight a few design decisions because they have really important trade-offs in this work. So first, this prototype prioritizes standardization. Like the CC licenses, we think that signals must be simple and standardized in order to be effective. The scale of machine reuse is astronomical, so a limited set of standard options is necessary both to make the tools practical and to give them leverage to actually steer behavior. The second is that we are treading very cautiously when it comes to legal enforceability. We don't want to inadvertently expand copyright, and we don't want to create unnecessary disruption in the operation of existing CC licenses. On the other hand, we recognize that leveraging the power of copyright where it exists and where it's applicable will increase the impact of the tools. So we're trying to walk that line with care. Last, we think the functionality of the tools hinges on whether they can be read and interpreted easily by machines. To meet this aim efficiently, we've based this prototype on an integration that pairs it with existing and evolving technical protocols. One of the challenges of building a new tool like this is how abstract it can feel in the early days of development. So to help make things feel a little bit more concrete and kind of show how the pieces fit together, I'm going to run you through an example scenario. In this scenario, a web platform is the steward of open biodiversity data and information that's contributed by more than 2 million users. Any copyright in the contributed data is retained by the users, and those data are subject to a variety of different CC licenses. In this scenario, the web platform is the declaring party. In this hypothetical world, the web platform and the contributor community have historically been supportive of machine crawling of the site, especially when that crawling happens for research, teaching, and learning. However, they want to help ensure that any benefits of AI training on their research outputs contributes back to this community. The web platform works with their community to determine the CC signal that's appropriate and the particular category of machine reuse that the signals should apply to. At the end of that process, the web platform applies a CC signal to seek credit and ecosystem contributions from developers using the open data for AI training. Down the line, an AI developer uses images within the dataset as part of training a new image detection and generation model. To meet the credit requirement of the CC signal, they provide a link back and citation to the dataset they used. And then they also do an assessment of what to contribute to the ecosystem based on the platform's requests and Creative Commons best practices. This assessment would be based on a good faith standard, but this is very different from it being optional. Not making an assessment is not good faith, and manipulating the assessment is not good faith. So I want to break down the scenario just a bit further to get more specific about the effect of a CC signal. Technically, a CC signal functions as an opt-out of the selected category of machine reuse. So in our example scenario, that's AI training. This means that the web platform is essentially saying, don't engage in AI training on my platform unless you adhere to the criteria in the CC signal. The legal effect of the CC signal depends both on whether the declaring party has authority to act on behalf of the contributing users under copyright and the particular jurisdiction. In other words, legally speaking, that signal may be either a you must or a please under law. We plan to develop a set of declarations that explain the different potential scenarios in human readable form as the next step in this work. There's still a lot to work through on this front, including both the structure and purpose of those declarations and what their legal implications will be in various jurisdictions. We'll be leaning on our global network of copyright experts, many of whom I imagine are here to help us with this in the coming months. Ultimately, though, we expect rational actors to adhere to CC signals regardless of the legal effect. Taking the long view, respecting the wishes of those who create and steward content will help preserve the incentives for them to continue to share and widely distribute their works. We also anticipate that there are plenty of tactics available to further incentivize adherence by developers, and this is one of many areas where we're seeking your input and ideas. This next phase of work is dedicated to hearing from all of you. We've outlined a huge amount of questions that we would like input on, ranging from big picture questions about what reciprocity means to you, to specific ones about the wording of a particular requirement. This slide provides a snapshot of some of those. We'll talk a bit later about how exactly to get involved and provide input. I want to close by going back to who we're designing for and why. Like CC licenses, CC signals are being designed to give choices to people who want to contribute to the commons. If this isn't a driving motivation for a creator or a steward in sharing their works, then there are likely other options out there that will suit them better. Similarly, when it comes to adherence by AI developers, we're building for those who benefit from the commons and who see the value of this intervention because it will help sustain the commons. Last, I again just want to underline that there is a balance between standardization and actually meeting the needs of diverse audiences. This is going to be an evergreen challenge in this work, and the trade-offs are really tough. We consider this first iteration of the framework as just our first shot at it. We will need your help to take the next steps. So with that, I will pass it back to Anna.
Thank you, Sarah. I am really excited to welcome Angela Odor-Lungati to give us her perspective on the CC Signals framework. Angie, in addition to being CC's esteemed board chair, is also the executive director of Ushahidi. And for those who aren't familiar, Ushahidi is a nonprofit organization that sources user-generated reports to map data and ultimately to empower communities. Angie, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you, Anna. Hope you can all hear me clearly. And congrats to you and the team for all the hard work that's gone into developing this thinking around the CC Signals framework. Now, I'm going to share my perspective as a technologist from the global majority, who's really been working to empower disenfranchised communities to solve problems within their context by surfacing their lived experiences and community-generated data. Now, the African continent and many other parts of the developing world are yet to fully realize the potential and promise that AI holds for sustainable futures. And this is because of challenges that revolve around many things, one of them being talent, another one being compute and data. So today I'm going to hone in on data specifically. Now, it's a widely known fact that data sets from the global south, and especially those from the African continent, are significantly underrepresented in the training of AI tools globally. And this lack of representation often results in tools and models that fail to take our lived realities and languages into account, and that leaves us beholden to tools that were not built with the global south in mind. But beyond that data gap lies an even deeper problem, which is data extractivism. More often than not, data is collected from disenfranchised communities with little to no safeguards in place to protect them from being exploited. And worse still, that data is collected from these local communities while gatekeeping the benefits that can be reaped from them, right? So you find that local knowledge is being captured under the guise of development or digital inclusion, only for them to be used to train systems that these communities have absolutely no stake in shaping and from which they rarely benefit from, be that monetarily or otherwise. And it's also clear that existing legal frameworks are inadequate in dealing with this particular challenge. Now, one thing to be clear about is that Communities in the Global South are already finding ways to take back control and agency over how their data is collected, and how to ensure that value goes back to them. A really great example of this is the Noodle license, which is the Nwulite Obodo Open Data License that seeks to empower access to end use of African data sets through equitable licensing. Now, what I think is that the CC Signals framework provides a blueprint that still stands for the ability for us to share knowledge while setting boundaries around how to assign value and giving that choice back to people who are being exploited in this era of artificial intelligence. Now, a key component of ensuring the successful utility of the frameworks is ensuring the equitable enforcement. We've seen how, for example, data protection laws have been stronger in some regions than others, which means that there's minimal compliance in the Global South. And so what I think for Creative Commons is that it might mean that we need to work more closely with policy experts and the broader knowledge commons ecosystems in the Global South to find ways to embed the framework within existing compliance mechanisms. Overall, I think global engagement on what we are proposing today is going to be crucial in helping us make sure that this framework truly addresses the systemic barriers experienced on the ground. And that's why this public feedback period is so critical. And I'm really encouraging all of you to actively engage with us, give us your feedback, and invite your global colleagues and partners to also participate. It'll really help us to make sure and shape the CC signals into something that is truly global or a truly global intervention that will address truly global challenges and opportunities. So we're looking forward to your feedback, engagement, and conversations as we continue to build on this. Thank you, Anna. Back to you.
Thanks so much, Angie. I'm going to reinvite Jocelyn Mayara now to come back. She's CC's Community Strategy and Engagement Manager, and she's going to talk us through the power of the collective as it relates to the CC Signals project.
Thanks so much, Anna. So I want to spend some time, as Anna said, talking about the importance of collective action in the context for calling for reciprocity in the AI ecosystem. Social norms are arguably the single most important aspect of human governance. They dictate how we behave, how we belong, and how we make decisions across nearly every aspect of our lives. Norms can be powerful, but they require collective action. When we are looking to shift behavior and relationships within an ecosystem toward the public interest, laws and enforceability are very important, but there's an argument to be made that community norms and shared expectations of how to engage are even more important. Shared knowledge generally, and CC licensed content specifically, has always been based on an implicit assumption that we're all in this together. The basic value system of the commons is rooted in a fundamental belief that knowledge and creativity are building blocks of our culture rather than just commodities from which to extract market value. We give, we take, and we give back again. Mobilizing the power of the collective was fundamental to the eventual adoption of CC licenses. The ability to do so has also informed our design choices so far in this development process. Change will come, whether legally enforceable or not. And once there's a groundswell of data stewards and creatives calling for this reciprocity, that groundswell will be even bigger. A single preference uniquely expressed is inconsequential in the machine age. But a movement of applying shared signals expressed by all those who have built up the commons is pivotal. CC signals use collective action to shift the AI ecosystem toward the public interest. The more data stewards that assign CC signals, the more effective the intervention. This is where our power comes from. There are three signal elements of the CC signal design that I want to highlight that are meant to respond directly to the need for collective action. One, as Sarah mentioned earlier, when it comes to the exchange of money within the CC Signals framework, we're not building a business model or even a way to reliably recoup costs. Instead, we're seeking ways to spur the redistribution of monetary and non-monetary benefits across the commons in ways that sustain the commons. Second is that this means that CC Signals is not designed for creators who are primarily looking to monetize their content in the age of AI. They are instead designed to give choices for people who want to contribute to the commons. If this isn't a motivation for a creator or steward in sharing their works, then there's likely another licensed tool or protocol out there that would suit them better. And the third is that, like protocols, CC Signals will rely on willing participation by AI developers to adhere to it. We know that there are AI developers who are seeking to make good faith efforts to meet the wishes of creators. We are choosing to design for the good actors. Let's not forget that AI developers also have an incentive for this kind of system to work. Assuming the pushback against AI continues, AI developers could end up in a position where they have to license everything. While CC licenses are built atop copyright law and therefore carry the weight of copyright infringement risk, in reality they work because people have chosen to adhere to them, and they are grounded in intuitive notions about what is fair and pro-social when it comes to sharing and reuse of knowledge. So while we're asking our community to be active participants in designing CC Signals, we're also asking for you to come together and to empower this beautiful collective in calling for another way. We've created a number of ways for you to get involved. First, we have a CC Signals repository on GitHub that includes technical information as well as a place for discussion of all kinds. This is a great place to continue some of the conversations that I've seen in the chat about different designs. There are sections for all of that, so please hop in there and check it out. We chose GitHub as a vehicle for asking questions and giving feedback because of its openness. We also want to see what kind of questions and feedback your colleagues are giving and start making connections between community feedback and the revisions to the framework. We will also be running a series of town halls throughout the next few months to give verbal feedback and ask questions of the CC team. And lastly, we ask that you talk about CC Signals with folks that you think might be interested in it. You can keep up to date on our work by signing up for our newsletter or following us on social media. We'll have more ways to engage soon and show your support. We're excited to see how the support grows in these efforts. And now I'll pass it back to Anna. Thank you.
Thanks, Jocelyn. We're nearing the finish line, folks, of just this webinar. We're actually at the starting line of this project. But I just want to say thanks to everybody who joined us today and anyone who's going to watch this recording later on. Thank you for being here on this journey. Like I mentioned at the beginning, we've been working our way towards this proposed intervention for quite some time now. And I suspect that many of you who are here today have already contributed in some way. Maybe you got hands-on during a full day workshop, or maybe we tapped you to sit in on a small roundtable and share high-level views on AI in the Commons early on. Maybe you just stumbled into this through one of the sessions we held at other conferences. Either way, we are grateful for you being here. We also have folks here from organizations who advocate for the Commons as tirelessly as we do. So I saw on the attendee list Open Future and Mozilla and Wikimedia and Open Knowledge Foundation and the Engelberg Center. And that list truly goes on and on. So just please know that we appreciate your thought partnership and the in-depth conversations over the past few years as we've been working on this together. I also want to acknowledge the CC folks on our team who have been part of this project over the last period and have really helped facilitate community consultations prior to that. So you can see the names of our CC Signals team members on the screen shortly. If you've been part of this journey with us so far, you've almost certainly chatted to them. So give them a high five. You can expect to see them in GitHub, at the virtual town halls that Justin was talking about, and so on in the coming months. But finally, we have a request. You will not be surprised to hear this request from me. We are actively seeking funding to be able to continue to develop CC Signals. A huge thanks to our existing funders, and many of you I know are here today for your support of our vision and for letting us get this far in development. Any ongoing and new support to CC's Open Infrastructure Circle is the single best way to support both the development of CC Signals, but also the ongoing stewardship of the CC licenses and the broader open infrastructure sharing. So if you would like to support this work or join the Open Infrastructure Circle, please reach out to us. Finally, I want to reiterate that this is not us presenting a done deal all packaged up. We are at the starting line, so it is time for you to choose your own adventure. Our call for feedback and input is really genuine, and your engagement with this work is truly essential to its success. There are many things that we have surely gotten wrong based on our assumptions and design choices, even at this paper prototype stage. So I would like us to recall the quote that Sarah shared earlier, in particular, the prompting question, could this be otherwise? Because at this stage, all of it could be otherwise. Our consultation has taken us from a blank page to the draft that we're presenting today, but everything is open for discussion. The name of the framework, the icons, the colors, the signal elements themselves, how we ask for credit, what contributions look like, and so on. So please, 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 please help us improve this, because we want to collectively build something that rewrites the relationship between AI and the commons. And that's what we're looking forward to getting started on with you all. So with that, we will wrap up and really look forward to seeing your comments and feedback following today's kickoff. Thank you so much.